In this lesson, we'll take a look at how we can modify textures in Maya. So we know that textures are external files that we've brought into Maya. For instance, in 08 begin, this is our project file here, you'll notice that we have a similar wood type of a texture applied to the mantle beam here that we had on the chandelier. Let's say we want to create a little bit of a modification on this. So maybe we want to around the bolts, maybe add some darkness or some rust staining a little bit, or maybe some scratches. We can do all of this in Photoshop on our original texture, or we can modify our texture here in Maya using the 3D Paint tool. So to do this, we'll select our object, go to the rendering menu set, go to texturing. Let's open up the 3D Paint tool. I'm going to go ahead and drag it across here so we can see the interface. We've got areas for brush, color, paint operations, and so forth. And so what we want to do is under File Texture, we want to choose the attribute to paint. So color is what we want to paint. And then we'll assign Edit Texture, and then we can choose our texture size. So make that 2048. We'll change the image format to a JPEG, and let's say Assign Edit Textures. So now we can come up here, and we can change our color that we want to paint with. So maybe we want to paint with more of a rusty kind of a color. Let's take our opacity down a little bit. We can change our brush size a bit as well, and then we can start painting on our actual texture. And once we start painting, we can use the B key to modify the brush size, and we can make modifications to our texture. We can make little nicks and scratches anywhere on this texture using whatever color that we want to use. If we're using a Wacom tablet, even better. Now you do have paint operations in here, so you have paint, erase, clone, so there's a lot of different operations that you can do. Right now we're just sort of painting on this. You can also set an image that you'd like to be able to erase back to, so we're being able to restore this back to its original state. Okay, so we also have settings down here under File Texture for saving the texture on each stroke, so every time you make a stroke it can save it. You can also there are buttons here for saving and reloading the file texture. So if we just hit save, we can save that texture out. So if we come in and look at this and go into our texture, you can see it's added this shading switch, and then the actual file that it's using, instead of using that original beam color texture, it's now using this texture, this room beam shape 1 color. And this is actually in the source images folder, but instead of being where the original texture was, it made a copy inside of this 3D Paint Textures folder. And then inside 08 begin, and then it's created a new file here. So it's nice because it's non-destructive. It's not saving over your original file. It's actually creating a new file that you can modify. Okay, so at any time you can come in here and continue, painting on it. We do have, again, different operations that you can use along with the different colors. And then also you can change your brush type up here, solid brush, square brush, your different brush profiles as well. So kind of a simple rudimentary method of painting here. You can also, if you're working on something symmetrical, you can use reflection to paint symmetrically on both sides. You can also change the pressure. If you're using a stylus, you can modify how the pressure affects this. So sometimes you'll hear this referred to as artisan as well, but it allows you to modify in a very kind of simple way the textures that you have if you need to make some modifications to those. So the next thing that we'll look at is, what if we have a bunch of different objects that we just really need to add some simple color variation to all those different objects? How can we do that? Well, let's take a look in the next lesson at using a ramp to color a bunch of books that we've built out.